Fellow Zionists, thank you for joining Jewish National Fund USA's weekly briefing. I am Saul Brand, president of Jewish National Fund USA. It's day 194 of the war in Israel. Many of you joined us over the weekend for our extra edition of our briefing following Iran's unprecedented attacks. We must remain vigilant as we approach the upcoming holiday of Passover. Our first guest today is Major David Ross, IDF spokesperson. Major Ross was born in the UK to the son of a Holocaust survivor and immigrated to Israel as a child before joining the IDF spokesperson unit. He served as an officer in the Armored Corps, where he held positions as a mortars officer, as a deputy company commander, and as an instructor in the international branch of the ground forces. David currently serves in the strategy department of the International Spokesperson Office. Major Ross, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Dr. Sol, and good to be here with you. It's fantastic to see so many supportive faces, so many people who are standing with us during thick and thin. As we all know, the past week was a tense one for everybody here on the ground, but I'm sure also for many people all around the world who are standing with us and who are really our partners and one with us, both in terms of what you carry in your hearts and in terms of how you experience things. Iran, the major destabilizing force in the Middle East, launched an unprecedented attack against Israel from Iranian soil. Just a few numbers, there were approximately 350 missiles, UAVs, cruise missiles, with massive warheads, approximately 60 tons of explosive materials were attempted to be dropped on Israel on Saturday night, which is a huge amount of explosives. You could just imagine what that energy could be used for if it wasn't used to try to destroy us. An absolute waste, not just in terms of use of energy and what the Iranian people would need, but also waste because we have a strong army, a highly prepared military, and we managed to intercept 99% of those missiles. If you've been watching the news headlines over the last 24 hours or so, we found one of the missiles that was attempted to be dropped on Israel, and it was about 11 meters long, over a meter wide. I saw it myself yesterday, and this what you can see if you even now or after this briefing look it up, you can see a huge piece of shrapnel that was attempted to be blasted at Israeli civilians' infrastructure, but we managed to intercept it. The way we were able to intercept it is also unprecedented. Coming together with a strategic alliance of our partner nations, which include the US, the UK, France, and others, we successfully defended ourselves as we have done, as we will continue to do, pretty much in any briefing I give or group I talk to. It's really important for me to emphasize, if I emphasize one thing, it's that Israel is not going anywhere. We're here and we're here to stay. The way that we're here to stay is through our technological superiority. It's through the brains of the ingenious Jewish people and the people of Israel. You're going to hear from some extremely brainy people. My colleagues here, my friends Shimrit and all, are going to share with you later on. But the reason we're able to survive is because of the way we've worked strategically, technologically, and also with successful partnership with the countries I named beforehand. But it's really important when I think about the attacks that Iran attempted to launch on our civilians, on our communities, infrastructure, and military on Saturday night, is the reality, and this is something that probably a lot of the people around the world don't like to look at, is the damage that would have been done if we had not successfully defended ourselves. People don't like to look at the amount of buildings, the amount of people that would have been killed, and people say, "Oh, Iran knew that Israel has all this incredible technology." Well, we've invested in it. We've invested in the future. We've invested in defending ourselves, and we will continue to do so. And it's important to emphasize what I'm sure many of you have heard already, but I'll say it on behalf of the Israeli Defense Forces, that we continue to be on high alert and are really ready for any scenario, whether it's defensive, whether it's offensive. And we now have the power, and we will choose when to respond, both in terms of time and in terms of place, in terms of what is strategically wise. And obviously, we have to take our cues from the political echelon. I'm personally expert on military strategy, but not on a political strategy. That's not our area of expertise in the idea of spokesperson. But what I can tell you is that we are standing strongly against Iran, against all of the Iranian proxies, against the axis of terror that they've launched, which they have shown since October 7th, in terms of the attack from Hezbollah, from the Houthis in Yemen, from places in Syria and Iraq. And on Saturday night, they really raised their evil head in a way that they hadn't done before. They showed their true intentions of seeking to destroy Israel, seeking to rain psychological terror on the people of Israel. I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of the military, but I am in reserves, and I do go home every evening. And I can say that on Sunday morning, things were tense in Tel Aviv. People weren't really out and about. It was chillingly quiet as I made my way back to the base after a very limited number of hours sleep. But by Sunday evening, everyone was out again. Life goes on. We are strong. We are determined. And I'm very, very proud to be a member of the Israeli Defense Forces today, during this time when we've shown that we are both willing and capable to stand against any evil force that would seek to come up against us. And I think it goes well with the festival of Purim, which we've just had. I know Passover is coming up. We're going to talk about liberation, but my mind's still in Purim and in the success and the way that we've stood against enemies who've come up against us. And Purim is particularly pertinent when we're talking about the Iranian threat. But it's really good to be here. I'm happy and proud to be with so many supportive faces. I see Israel flags in the backgrounds of many of you, and it's truly heartwarming. It means so much to the IDF. It means so much to all of us as Israelis, as Jewish people, to see you standing day in, day out. Often I tell my friends around the world that I know they say thank you for your service, but I say to them and to all of you, thank you for your service. It's really, really important to raise awareness around the world where it's difficult to see what's actually going on here on the ground, the evil that we're facing, but also the resilience and strength of the people of Israel standing up against that terror. So just like many people say thank you for my service, I say really to you, thank you for everything, to all of you for all that you do. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them either now or later on. But there's some very intelligent, people who are doing very important things, and I'll let them have the floor as well.
So, David, you know, everybody would like to know what the retaliation is going to look like, but we're not going to ask you that question. The question that we will ask is, with so much equipment being used to counter the Iranian attacks, how long will it take to resupply that equipment so that we're prepared again?
Okay, so what I can tell you is that we are prepared. We are already prepared again. We're not in a situation in which we lasted one night and now we're stuck. Obviously, the cost of defending against the Iranian operation is significant. Now, the IDF and alongside our international partners that I mentioned, and also those that I didn't mention, are standing strongly. We know that Iran has capabilities beyond what they've thrown at us, and we also have a lot more in our back pocket, so to speak. So in terms of time, in the sense of, are we ready if Iran come tonight? Yes, we are. In terms of replenishing specifically what we had there, I mean, obviously you need to buy weapons, you need to manufacture them, but we have more than enough, and we're definitely ready to face whatever threats our enemies send at us. So it's a good question. And regarding, I appreciate you not asking the retaliation. I mean, that's obviously, it's beyond my pay grade. And everybody has their own opinion on exactly how and what. And I respect, and as the military, we also respect different people's opinions, and we'll take our cues from those who give us our commands and do our job as best as we can, and be ultimately committed, continue to be committed to the security of the people of Israel.
Great. Well, thank you, Major Ross, and we'll call upon you again. Thanks for your time. Our next guest is Gabriel Groisman. Gabriel is a Jewish community leader and a strong voice supporting the Jewish community, with a focus on fighting against anti-Semitism, strengthening the community, and building bridges between Israel and the U.S. Gabriel served as mayor of Bal Harbor, Florida for 6 years through November 2022. He wrote and passed the nation's first municipal anti-BDS ordinance and was the first in the nation to codify a uniform definition of anti-Semitism in December 2017. Gabriel has presented around the world, including at the United Nations, the Italian Parliament, the Israeli Knesset, and others. He's a practicing attorney and government affairs consultant as a partner at LSN Partners. He's an advisor on legal matters around the world related to protecting the Jewish community from discriminatory conduct by governments and private individuals alike. He recently filed a Title VI complaint against the University of Berkeley Law School, and he fights against discriminatory labeling practices by the European Union. Gabriel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. So much is going on. I was asked to sort of give an update of what I see going on here in the United States on many different fronts. I'll try to touch some of them. Of course, I can't hit everything. What's happening today is on Capitol Hill in particular is very important for the Jewish community and for Israel. Today, there's a hearing in the House Education and Workforce Committee with the president of Columbia University. There's a follow-up hearing from the famous hearing heard around the world with the presidents of Harvard and other universities that everybody heard when they talked about, it depends on the context, whether calling for the genocide of Jews violates the school's code of conduct. So there's a follow-up of those hearings. We have the president of Columbia University is there, a bunch of students that are testifying. I know some of the students helped prep some of the students on their testimony on what they're going to speak about. What I'd like to say is that the situation actually on college campuses is worse than anybody can ever depict. If you spend any time speaking to students, it's not just at the elite universities that most people think that there are definitely exceptions, but in almost all of the major universities in our country today, if you have kids there, it's very tough. At Columbia, for example, today, there's supposed to be a pro-Israel rally as a response to what the day of rage that we had on Sunday all over the country and all over the world. So in response to that, they have tents. They put out tents overnight in the main quad of Columbia University and put a fence around the tents and said that it's an occupied Palestinian refugee camp in Free Gaza to try to preempt the Jews from being there, which is really the story at Columbia and other schools. It's not a story about free speech. If it were, it would be a different discussion. It's a story about free speech for those who are calling for the genocide of Jews and really ostracizing the Jewish community around their campuses. And when the Jews themselves try to stand up, in almost every case, they're getting shot down. At Columbia, an event that I was supposed to speak at was canceled because the school said they couldn't provide sufficient security. And that's every day. And unfortunately, it's getting worse. A lot of people believe that the firing of the president at Harvard and other schools have solved the problem. It's really just been lip service. Schools like MIT in particular are really bad, but even in Florida, which is a bastion of hope in our country when it comes to this issue, even in Florida, University of Southern Florida and Tampa, the incidents that the students are dealing with there are heartbreaking at worst. There's lots of lawsuits pending against these universities as well. People want to know what they can do. There's a lot of lawsuits, Title VI actions. The big funders of the universities have all written letters and trying to threaten to pull their money. This same committee and the House Education and Workforce Committee is doing an investigation on foreign funding and the influence at universities, because a lot of the issues have to do actually with the professors, not just the students. I've spoken to many of the members in that committee. They already have the information, so a lot of it is show. That information is out there. There's a lot of organizations who have already uncovered a lot of the financing that's going to these universities. It's about putting it out in a public sphere. The other big issue, like everybody knows, is the House supplemental bill to fund Israel. Just now, as we were about to start, I got a text from my partner in Washington, D.C., that Mike Johnson put out that he's about to release the foreign aid bill that people have been talking about the last 2 days. It's going to be separate for Israel and Ukraine and Taiwan, all separate. And within each of those bills, there's going to be separate votes for Iron Dome, for replenishing munitions, etc. They're going to be adding it apparently with also a border security package. It sounds like it's something pre-negotiated to make sure they get the votes from the Freedom Caucus and those on that front. And also it's going to include a ban on TikTok, a prospective ban on TikTok. It's probably going to hit the news now in the next hour or so. If it hasn't already, it's all going to be together, which really spells a little bit of disaster for us, because the more things that they have together, the more chances it won't pass. But the reason why they're splitting it up is to see if at least the Israel part can pass. What will happen then for those following, it will have to go back to the Senate, even though the Senate has already passed it, but it was part of a big package. If the House changes the bill, it has to go back to the Senate. So it'll go back to the Senate. The president has said he doesn't want to sign an individual Israel bill. It's likely trying to just pressure to make sure Ukraine goes through as well. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens if it gets to that Senate, if it passes the Senate, and if it gets on the president's desk. I don't predict a scenario where it gets to the president's desk and he does not sign it. I think it's just posturing to try to make sure the Ukraine funding goes through as well. More on the lawfare front, I'll share with you all. We filed a lawsuit against Associated Press. It's been in the news for their hiring a Hamas-affiliated photographer who, before they breached the fence into Israel on October 7th, sent out a telegram that said, "Today we're going to bring glory to God," or to Allah, and came across no vest. There were a known affiliate of Hamas, was celebrating, came back. All those images that you see were from him, and these were pictures that they purchased from him. And so we're hoping it's filed in the United States District Court in the Southern District of Florida. 4 lawyers are doing it. We're all doing it pro bono, and just trying to work through. The discovery is the most important part of that case, so we can learn really what they knew, how they knew, and really uncover some of the relationship between Hamas and other terror organizations and the press. Bigger picture, Jewish community, as we know, continues strong in most of our strongholds in the United States, in South Florida, in California, in Ohio, and New York, of course, in Dallas, and Houston. All the communities are strong. They continue incredibly engaged. I've been speaking around the country for different events, and it's nonstop. The support for Israel is nonstop. I do want to just wave a flag to everybody. I'm involved in government and politics. We have to really be sure as a community, this unity that we've found once again, this newfound unity in the Jewish community here. We shouldn't let this political season divide us again. We can have different political views, but we have to really stand together on so many issues that are existential for us, not just in Israel, but here in the United States. And I think that's a critical point that I hope we can continue to engage within our own community. We don't have to agree on where we vote or how we vote, but we shouldn't let that divide us. And we could talk more about that. The last thing that I can shed light on that is unique to what I do for a living, I deal with governors and mayors across the country for business reasons, but also on Jewish issues and for Israel. There is a big fatigue with regards to Israel going on right now, just like the fatigue we saw with Ukraine. There's big city mayors, big state governors who kind of they do want to see this moving along, and it's starting to what it is there's a lot of wear and tear from the anti-Israel crowd. So even those who are standing strong for Israel and for the Jewish community are getting are getting exhausted and their support is starting to wane. Most of it is behind the scenes. They're still saying the right things, but if you have private conversations with them, if you help counsel them, which is what me and some of my friends and partners do, we're really starting to see that. So I think we have to redouble our efforts. It shouldn't just be people in my business talking to these guys. Everyone needs to reach out to their elected officials. Don't assume that this is still top of mind for them. This is something that it's our responsibility to make sure that people still remember. There's still 134 hostages in Gaza, six of them Americans. This anti-Semitism is exploding in the United States. It's unacceptable. These are things that we need to, as a community, everybody needs to reach out and be involved in. I could tell you I was in Mexico this weekend speaking to the Mexican Jewish community, 40,000 people there. It was small but very strong and united community. And they and the Jewish community all over the world is actually very concerned about what's happening in the U.S. People are very concerned and looking to see ways they can help. So I actually found that heartening to know that people outside of here are actually focusing on what's happening in the U.S. But I am an eternally optimistic person. I'll be going to Israel, God willing, on Sunday for Passover with my family to vote with my feet, as they say, and be there in support. And God willing, we'll stay safe and we'll continue the fight here. And what I'll urge all of you, again, is let's make sure we keep the unity in the community, especially in these coming months, and that we keep the pedal down to the metal, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and there's not enough of us in this country for any of us to be doing it alone. It only works when we all do it together. So thank you so much, and glad to take any questions.
Gabriel, thank you so much for everything you do. We will have you come back again for some questions. We want to get through a couple more speakers, but what you do is very inspiring and obviously makes a big difference. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I also want to note that Gabriel is a member of the JNF Global Speakers Bureau, and you can reach out to us to help bring Gabriel to your community. Visit us at jnfglobalspeakers.org. Our final guests are Shimrit and Or from the Margalit startup city in Kiryat, Shmona. Supported by JNF USA's Go North initiative, Shimrit is the partner and chief operating officer, and Or is the community and content manager. Thank you both for joining us and updating us what's happening in the North.
Thank you so much, Sol, and thank you everyone, Tali and everyone for inviting us. So for a few minutes, we will not talk about missiles and the army and terror attacks. For a few minutes, Or and Dvorah Mason, who is here with us as well, will talk about hope. And Major Ross said something important before. He said that what was obvious from the past week is that Israel is here to stay. So we want Israel to stay not just through the Iranian attack, but for generations to come. And in order for that to happen, we need partnerships like the partnership we have between Margalit Startup City and JNF. So before I talk about anything, I want to thank all of you. We have a partnership for the past 8 years. We have built something amazing in the Galilee. We have created in the city of Kiryat Shmona, which was one of the poorest cities in the country. We have created a tech ecosystem which made the entire region thrive. We brought over 250 startups in FoodTech, in AgTech, and Climate Tech to the Galilee. We invested in them. We brought together with us strategic partners that will help our startups thrive. We brought Nestle, we brought Mars, we brought large multinationals. And then we also partnered with the academic centers there. And on October 6th, just before everything that happened, we together won the bid of the Israel Innovation Authority to upgrade this center, not just as a FoodTech and AgTech center for the region, but as a Climate Tech International Center. And we had all our plans and we had everything. And just on October 8th, we were ready to go. Obviously, we all suffered great harm on October 7th, and it was a horrifying day. And what we did since then, and I think it was just from the first days, is to create the bridge in order for the communities to go back there once they can. So the Galilee was obviously evacuated. So we're not in the building physically itself, but we took all our activities and created a bridge. So once everyone come back, and we hope they come back as soon as possible, all the infrastructure and everything, all the activities will be ready for them once they come back to continue and thrive. So for example, we did a big event in Machanaim. We had Alon Badichi from JNF representing you guys there. We also had David Greenbaum, who came all the way from the US and visited there, and we thanked him. And they talked together with Margalit, our founder. They talked about our partnership. We had 70 startups at that event and 15 investment institutions. And we did a matchmake between the two of them, looking for investments in startups so they will cross this bridge of these difficult times. We brought all our communities, even though they're not there. We worked with kids in the schools of Kiryat Shmona to teach them FoodTech and AgTech and to make them the young entrepreneurs of the North. Even though they're evacuated, we are continuing to work with them wherever they are. Either it's in Tel Aviv or in Eilat, wherever they are, we reach to them. Another thing that we did is we took our communities that we built for years in the Galilee and did all kinds of activities to help them continue and thrive. So one of our communities is Gali Ladies. It's an amazing community created by Or, my partner here, of 2,000 female entrepreneurs that are sitting in the Galilee. So Or, maybe say a few words about what this community has done since October 7th.
Okay, so hello everyone. It's an honor for me to meet you. So Gali Ladies is the first women's entrepreneur community of the greater Galilee and the Golan, and it's made of more than, as Shimrit said, 1,800 women entrepreneurs, technological entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, and local business owned women, Jews, Arabs, and Druze, and we since October 7th, Gali Ladies have pivoted to focus on strengthening the personal, mental, and financial resilience to our community. We have online meetups on those topics, and we hold monthly events, including markets that supports our I'm sorry, I'm very excited. Very excited. Including markets devoted to selling products of members from the community whose businesses have been drastically damaged by the war.
Yeah, and maybe Dvora, just 2 sentences just to add. I think you can unmute yourself. Yeah. Good.
I don't think I've ever spoken for 2 sentences, but I'll do my best. What's really important to keep in mind is that we looked at the moment where things had to change, and we constantly, talk about hope, and we're focused on the day after. And in the meantime, there was a relocation of these communities, and yet we continue to provide the support needed in order to be able to maintain and to be able to support the communities and the needs that are both pre-existing and that have been created anew owing to the situation and owing to the unknown and uncertainty. But we have our eyes focused on the future, and we believe that communities are a basis to relocation, to resettlement, and to be able to rebuild the areas that we see as such a critical part to the vibrant future of Israel. And we're just focused on that. We continue to work with JNF as our partners on these programs with these communities, and we hope to see it just continue to grow and to scale, and so thank you for that.
Yeah, and the last thing that we're doing, so first was the startup scene in the Galilee that we're working on together, and then the communities. And the last thing that we did all this time is real estate projects. So we want to create the infrastructure that once the FoodTech startups can come back to the Galilee, they have all the abilities to produce their products. So I don't know if it's because we are the only crazy people that submitted things for approval to committees in these trying times, but we got all kinds of approvals from the authorities, and we're moving on with our projects in the Galilee as well. So hopefully when the startups come back, they have a FoodTech facility to produce food products, so they will be able to produce their first batches and already sell them to the market. That was a critical point, that we saw that everyone that is that is growing in the Galilee than leaving to the south of Israel. So that's why we're building that. And we, as Dvorah and Or said, we really value this partnership and we really want to continue and work together. And we hope that our government will use the international alliance that helped us in the beginning of the week also to bring some peace to the north and bring all the people back to their houses so we can continue with our mutual activities. Thank you so much for everything and for having us on this call.
So, well, thank you. And I guess sometimes crazy is good. So you did a great job. So thank you, Shimrit, Or, and Dvorah. Thank you for joining us. To learn more on the impact you're having on the ground, visit jnf.org/support Israel. As always, we encourage you to travel to Israel with us on a volunteer working mission. We continue to sell out these missions, which will continue through December this year. Visit jnf.org/volunteeRIL to learn more and to register. Next week, we will be observing Passover. So we'll see you Wednesday, May 1st at the same time. We pray for the safe and swift return of our hostages so that they may celebrate the holiday of our people's freedom together with their families. Am Yisrael Chai.